Hey guys, this is Earnest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the three tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $E James, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome. This is Earnest James. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, aka Friend to Fatherless Daughters on Instagram. And I believe that everyone could live a life that is whole, happy, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help us to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with our problems, to heal from the pain, and fulfill our purpose. So once again, thank you for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. We are on season 2, episode 20. And again, today, like no other day, we have a special guest, our very own Miss Diana Copeland. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Nice to see you.
Thank you. So first of all, let me say thank you for being on. Thank you for being a guest. I know you could be doing anything else with your time. And so we definitely appreciate you coming on to share your story and your services with our listeners. So let's just jump right in. If you could just introduce yourself a little bit and let our listeners know what it is that you do.
I am Diana Copeland, Coach Diana Copeland, and I am a relationship coach. I focus on people pleasers as well as setting boundaries with women, and I'm helping them with relationships with themselves and others.
Okay, cool. So I know I was looking over some of your things, and I was looking out because I always go and look at the guest Instagram and things that they have to see what's available. Excuse me, to see what information that they have out. And it was one of the things that I seen that was on your page, and it said that you help empower women who find themselves asking about what about me. And I really liked that because to me, it seems like in this culture that we have, a lot of times that women do find themselves saying, what about me? Because they end up putting on or taking on so many responsibilities with the family, with the children, with work, then their own personal responsibilities that they found themselves getting wrapped up in serving everybody else that at some point they do turn around and say, what about me? And especially in our culture, I think it kind of adds to it with the narrative of the strong Black woman, because they try to live up to that narrative somewhat and take on, again, all these extra responsibilities. And then at some point they find themselves lacking in their own lives because they've given so much to everybody else. So especially with that narrative, how do you think that plays into the responsibilities or just the things that they take upon themselves? Just kind of overdoing it, I think, which kind of leads them two need your help because they've taken on so much, and then didn't do the self work or the self love for themselves, which we will address later. How do you think that plays a part, or why even do you think that plays a part in women taking on so much responsibilities, and then putting themselves last?
Well, thank you so much for asking that, because as a mother and a wife, and I also work outside of the home and have a business, if we are giving even 20% to each of those areas, and of course, we don't do that. We try and go and do even more than that. So,
Right.
and that doesn't include being a sister to your girlfriends and your siblings, and a daughter to your mom and father and whoever else. So you end up giving so much to all of those different areas that you are lacking, that you're pouring from a cup that is actually empty, and you're running on empty. So I do help the women that I serve, and anybody else out there, that they set aside some time for just them, whatever that looks like. It might be just sitting and reading a book. It might be taking a longer shower without the kid and the dog and everybody else coming in with you for that shower, or just that time that you need for yourself. But you definitely need to learn how to start putting yourself first. And you find that a lot with women and people pleasers, that we always are trying to make everybody happy, trying to help everybody. And you find that you are running on empty most of the time.
So you mentioned people pleasers, and that's a topic that I don't have a lot of information on because I haven't talked to too much about it. But why do you think that people kind of pick up that idea of I don't know if you want to call it an idea, but just pick up that habit of being a people pleaser, especially to the detriment of themselves. So as a mother, I can see you doing it for your child, or as a wife, I can see you doing it for your husband. But I find that a lot of the time it's like there's no boundary to it. You know what I mean? It's like you're kind of doing it for everybody, trying to make everybody happy, and it doesn't really work. But I'm kind of interested in maybe even kind of getting an idea of where that stems from, or where does it even start from?
I think it starts at an early age as well. I think you pick up on the people that your teachers, trying to make them happy, your workplace, you're trying to make them happy, family members trying to keep the peace. And life is a little bit easier when everybody's smiling and getting along, don't you think? And so
Yeah.
uh, when that's not happening, that makes a lot of people, including a lot of women, uncomfortable. So in order for to keep the peace and make sure that everybody is happy, you are the mediator, you're the person that is making sure that everybody is happy, everybody is okay. And again, it comes at a cost, and the cost is sometimes your health. The cost is you realizing that not all the time that anybody's running around trying to make sure that you're okay either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And it kind of leads to my next question, because people don't always make sure that you're okay. You have to kind of take on that responsibility, added on to the other responsibilities that you have. But again, coming with that responsibility for yourself to implement, self care into your lifestyle. And I think that sometimes, even now, even though it's talked about more now, but I still think that there's a misconception about what self care is, because when you think about the responsibilities that a mother has, and she may see her responsibilities as taking care of the children, to the point that she's over exalting herself to do that, but not taking care of herself. And then in some ways, like, okay, well, if I stop taking care of this, or if I pull back from doing some of this to take care of me, it's almost like a guilt that, I'm doing the other person a disservice, when in reality, you're doing everybody a blessing when you take care of yourself. Because if you take care of yourself and you do the self-care and the self-work, then that allows you to show up for everyone else, even in a better space. So I still think that, even though I understand that, but I still think that there's somewhat of a misunderstanding, maybe a communication still within the self-care arena. So if you were talking to, let's just say, a mother, to try to get her to understand that, no, you're not helping anyone else when you don't take care of yourself. You're actually probably doing more damage to anyone else when you do damage to yourself by not taking care of yourself. What would be something that you would maybe say to her to get her to understand that she is just as important as everyone else that she take care of?
Absolutely. And I think that for a long time, women have watched other women do the same exact thing. So it's a learned skill as well. And so now we're just now talking about self-care and boundaries. And you have to set your boundaries. It would be putting the kid to bed at a certain time every night, which is great for them, but it's also great for you to be able to sit back and unwind, whatever that looks like. It might even be just watching TV. It might be reading a book, pulling up the Bible. It could be anything, as long as it's something for you to relax. And everybody's self-care looks differently. However, what I do want to say is, for your daughters and your children, even your husband or your spouse, if you put that boundary in there, that's something that they're watching you. This is what I like to tell my ladies. Those children are watching you. And so you can't tell them later to put themselves first. And you can't tell them to put up the boundaries unless they see you actually doing exactly that. Just like us telling them from our words and not ever doing it.
Right. And I know one of my things with boundaries, that really has played a part with the people that I talk to, is not only setting those boundaries but sticking to it.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't stand up, for yourself, and you don't stand up for your own boundaries, then how do you expect someone else to do the same, to respect them? And I think that boundaries is one of those things that, to me boundaries serve three purposes, right? And so one purpose would be to protect yourself from others. The second will be to protect others from you, and then the third one would be to protect you from you, right? Because let's say if you are a person who maybe had a gambling addiction, then one of your boundaries would be to stay away from casinos. So we're not going
Right.
to the casino, we're not going for a concert, we're not going to the buffet. You know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah.
might be a boundary that you set in place to protect yourself from yourself. And a lot of time, I think the misconception with boundaries is, again, it's like you're doing everyone else a disservice when you put up standards for yourself. And I think that's been so misunderstood, even though standards will probably be another example of boundaries. Well, if we're talking about relationships and things like that, we all have our standards of what we expect the other person to live up to, as well as our standards for ourselves to live up to. But those standards and those boundaries protect all of us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it protects me, from myself, or it protects me if I know that certain things are triggers to me. Then I would put up that boundary and say, hey, look, don't do this, or don't say these things to me, because it really, my reaction may not have nothing to do with you, but it's
Right.
maybe a trigger for me that triggers something else, from maybe something from my past. And yeah, so I just think that boundaries within themselves is not just boundaries at all, but I think this whole the self love and self care arena, like I said, I know now is getting more addressed more, but I think it's way overdue.
It is. It is way overdue. And boundaries can just be, like you said, the triggers, but they're also, a lot of people aren't expecting you to give them boundaries. One, it makes other people feel better when I know how to communicate with you. And I know that this might be a trigger, like you said, or I know that I can't walk all over you and expect that, I can call you at the last minute and you're going to come and rescue me or pick me up or, you know, give me money or anything else. You've set those boundaries. And sometimes you have to set them as you go, because sometimes you don't even know that you need to set that
Right,
boundary.
right.
And so you don't know that because you haven't dealt with that consequence or that situation at that time. So it is good to know, but it is very hard for a lot of people to set those boundaries. They feel bad that they're setting the boundaries. And that's one of the things that I get a lot of. Oh, well, I said that, but I feel so bad now. I'm not there for them or I hurt their feelings. No, you didn't. And sometimes you have to. You have to put you first. And a lot of times we don't put ourselves first. We put everybody else again in that same loop. And so with that, the boundaries, the self-care and everything else.
Yeah, and what's so good about it is once you start putting those boundaries in place, it operates not only in your relationships, but it operates in sort of everything that you do. One of the things I was listening to a podcast recently, and it's an entrepreneurship podcast, and one of the questions was, when it comes to your scheduling and your customers, like how do you tell them no? And the host was saying, well, you dictate your time. And
Mm-hmm.
they might not like it at first. When you say I open up at 6 and I close at 6, if you come at 6:15, well, I'm closed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Mm-hmm.
what he was saying was, but when you set those boundaries and you let them know that that's what it is, then they respect it. But if you don't set it, then there's nothing for them to respect. And
Yeah.
so, I think that one of the things that I know I've been in within this last year or so is really getting into self development and, learning myself and those things. And I think that, as we get to know ourselves, and like you said, because if we don't know ourselves, we don't even know that some of these boundaries we need to put in place, to protect ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but if we don't know who we are and we don't know some of our own faults or things that we do to overcompensate from, because of things that may have happened in my past, then I don't even know that I need to put this boundary in place. And
Right.
therefore I'm doing myself again a disservice because I don't know myself,
Right.
and so I think that that's another thing that we really need to get into and pay attention to as part of this self-love and self-care journey is getting to know ourselves with the self-development to find the things within ourselves that is a little lacking and build them up. And as we build ourselves up and learn ourselves and build the standards from which we want to hold ourselves to, then to make it easier for us to hold others to those same standards and to those same
Absolutely.
boundaries.
Yes.
So I know that your program, um, I think it's called the Self Method, and I
Yes.
like it because I'm a uh, acronym. I'm an acronym person. I love acronyms, right? So I have a male mentoring program called Man Up, which is an
Mm-hmm.
acronym for Men Activating Newly Untapped Potential. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very big on acronyms. So when I came across your acronym, and I think it's the Self Method, I really liked it. And so could you tell us what does that mean, and then kind of go into it a little bit to explain what each letter stands for and how it helps those who come for you to be a coach.
Absolutely. But before we move on to the self method, I just wanted to say something that us setting boundaries is also a gift to the other person as well, because they really don't know that they are crossing your boundary if you don't really let them know. So I think it's a gift to them as well as a gift to you. Don't you think?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And
Hmm.
I know that just in relationships, or should I say past relationships myself, that there are some things that is like, when we start talking about triggers. Um, so one of the things that I shared about earlier, if the listeners go back in some of the earlier episodes of the podcast, is the reason that I'm the friend to fatherless daughters is for whatever reason, either I'm attracted to fatherless daughters or fatherless daughters are attracted to me. So everyone that I've ever been in a relationship with was a fatherless daughter, and so that being said, there are some triggers that come along with that. But if they don't know what those triggers are, then how could they expect me to not trigger them?
Right.
And so again, it goes to acknowledging, who you are, and like you said, knowing those things, because as your mate, it's definitely not my intention to hurt you in any kind of way. But if you don't know what's hurting you, then I don't know. Then you know what I'm saying. We kind of both of us love
It's
like
a
you know,
lose-lose.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, my
So,
method is self, and it is basically, and you'd have to take my course to find out exactly everything, but it's setting boundaries, it's effectively communicating, living, including yourself, and finding your voice. And those are all of the things that wrap up in kind of what we've just talked about today. But I go deep into finding those things, including wording, where you have a list of different things that are your triggers that we work on, so that we have a list of boundaries and everything else that goes with it, along with your self-care. All of it's wrapped up into this program.
oh, and I really love that, because when when I was looking at the different tiers or the different each section, I know I talked about the boundaries because I think the boundaries have, again, serves three purposes, and that's to protect us from others, protect others from us, and to protect us from ourselves.
Mhm.
But also, when I seen the uh, effective communication, I really liked that one too, because I think that is a big one, especially in relationships, because we always say that communication is one of the major keys to a relationship. But it's crazy of how many people that don't really know how to effectively communicate. And when I say effectively communicate, I think that communication is sometimes showed in three ways. So you got verbal communication, which is that one is the one we all know, and then we have emotional communication, and then we have physical communication. And all three of those play a part in being able to get your message across to your partner, or to whoever it is that you're having a conversation with or a dialogue with, whatever. And I think that when we are in control of how we verbalize or how we communicate, it comes off so much better when we have no idea, right?
Right.
And sometimes
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of people take on the even the thought process that there's something to communication besides just saying whatever it is that you want to say.
Right.
So like
Your
I don't
delivery.
curse. Right, right. So
Your
I don't
delivery.
curse, right? So if I'm
Hmm.
talking to somebody, it don't matter who I'm talking to, I don't curse. And I always say, if you have to curse to get your point across, then your vocabulary is too small. You know what I mean? Because it is too many words in a dictionary where you can get your point across without, saying it in a way that could be damaging, not only to the person that you're talking to, but it could be damaging to you, making the point that you're trying to make. It's like, because of the words that you use, now that whole thing that you just said just went right over my head. And I
Wow.
think that plays a major role, and I'm glad that you addressed that. especially with some of my women, because women tend to be more emotional, and so sometimes in those emotional states, the things that they say may come out before they have a chance to really think about it. And once, words is words. Once the damage is done, you can't take it back.
And most of the time they have those words because they have bit their tongue or taken on more than they thought they needed to and never said anything. And so by the time that they say that or those cuss words are coming out, they're up to here with everything, as opposed to addressing things as they came along, as setting their boundaries, telling you, not just you, but somebody, that it's, this makes me feel this way. And I believe the calmer you say it, the more they listen, right? That cussing and yelling and screaming has got you to that point, but you know that their lid is broken because it's
Right.
blown off. But it was because they didn't say anything when the little thing that somebody did bothered them. They just let them pile up and pile up and pile up. So I do teach that we address things as they come along, so that it's an easier conversation and we're not having to get the fire hose.
Right, right, and like you said, it kind of goes into, at least in my mind, it kind of goes into what one of the other things that you deal with, which is finding your voice. Because if you are comfortable with speaking your truth, then you can point out those little things before they become big things.
Yeah.
And I love that, finding your voice. Because even with me, that was a journey I had to go on, personally, with just being able to share my thoughts and my viewpoints, on things, because I've always been a thinker, more or less, but I've not always shared my opinion, and
Yeah.
just growing up being shy and having so much to say. Thankfully, I was also blessed with the gift to write, so it was easier for me to write things, write out what I thought, than it was for me to speak it. So when I got to the place where I was able to, verbally express myself, and, letting someone know how I feel, or just expressing my ideas verbally, AKA finding that voice, it opened up a lot of doors for me, just in my life period. Even to now, even that, to having the podcast,
Yeah.
where that's our voice, you know what I mean? So if I
Yes.
wasn't still had not found my own voice and being able to express myself, then we definitely wouldn't even be on this, platform right now. So I'm glad that you addressed that. And why do you think, or maybe with some of the women that you've helped in the past, what maybe has been one of the things that has hindered them the most with finding their own voices?
Has benefited them. Is that what you said?
Well, has been one of the things that I probably did say benefit, but that's not what I meant to say. But one of the things that may have hurt them the most, where, or hurt them in just in some kind of way, where they may have been afraid to share their voice, or just, something that may, have happened, or something that they may have shared, maybe a couple people that you may have already talked to, that may have had a common, thread to something that made it to the point where they were afraid to share their voice, should I say?
Well, I found a lot. One, in the workplace, not every time that everyone wants to hear exactly what you say. I found, and I think a lot of us are all included in this, where the family members are telling you to lower your voice, you're
Mhm.
too loud. Um, and then in relationships, they find that if they voice their opinion on something, either good or bad, they have that fear of that relationship not moving forward. And so they stop talking, they stop saying anything and having a voice. So everything that that partner wants is exactly what they end up doing and going with, even though they're not happy with it. So that those are kind of some of the issues that I've ran into, but a lot of them it's started. They used to love to talk, and then somebody's kind of put their thumb on them, either in the workplace or a relationship. And like I said, sometimes it's family members that end up telling you that you end up not having anything to say anymore. You're just observing.
Mm. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, especially when it happens within the family, because the wife or the mother generally is the backbone of the family. So
Mhm.
she kind of sets the tone, for everyone else in the household. And so if she doesn't have that voice to be able to speak and to lead, the household, then that kind of sends everybody else, off track. And it kind of goes
Yeah.
back to what you said, even with the mom and the children, when you don't set those boundaries or set your own boundaries and have that voice for yourself, they're watching. And if they don't, they might hear what you say, but they see what you do also. And sometimes what you
100%.
say and what you don't, what you say and what you do, if they don't line up together, then the whole point is lost in transition. So I'm really grateful for the work that you do, because I know that is much needed, and especially in the space that I work in, dealing with fatherless daughters, and not just fatherless daughters, but also with young men that I mentor, is not having that confidence, to kind of stand up for yourself and stand up for what you believe in, because I think that self-care and self-love, what it builds most is that self-esteem of who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. And again, with me, I feel like the woman is the cornerstone, of just about every thing in our lives, starting with our families, starting with our jobs, especially in our marriages, and just as a man, to go out into the world to do whatever it is that I'm going out to accomplish, knowing that I have a strong woman that has my back, and to be able to know that not only does she have my back, but she has her own back, she has her own
Absolutely.
backbone, she has her own strength, so I'm very strong and very passionate behind the whole self-care method, especially for our ladies, because I know it's much needed. And the more that you can take care of yourself, the more you can take care of me.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I know I need the help. So again, I appreciate definitely the work that you do. And so I'm gonna let you have the last word and the last say. So if it's something that you want to leave with our listeners, um, just a little nugget or something that they can carry on until they can contact you directly to enroll in your course. Just give us something that they can take with them, and then also give them your contact information for where they can find you at.
Okay, perfect. Well, you are loved, you are needed, and we need you is the biggest thing that I can send you off into this world with until you work with somebody. Know that your voice is needed. We want to hear from you in whatever capacity. I am here. I'm Coach Diana Copeland on all the platforms, social media platforms, and you're welcome to sign up for a free consultation. And I'm just so grateful that you had me today.
Oh no, no, definitely. I'm thankful that you even, took out the time to be here, because again, I know that your work is much needed, and I definitely will continue to follow you, which I already
Thank
do,
you.
but I definitely will continue to follow you and support you. So, whenever you feel like you wanna holler at me again, you got my number. Just call and we can do this again. Because I
You as
know that
well.
there are going to be, more things in store and greater platforms for you to stand on, and I'm proud to be a part of your journey. So again, I thank you for being on the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast.
Thank you. My
No
pleasure.
problem. So again, thank you all of our listeners for tuning in. This is the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I am on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and to fulfill. To deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So until next time, we will see you next week. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.